of self-expression. The golden age of self-expression is a celebration. Whether we speak, whether we sing, whether we scribble our ideas on a piece of paper, whether we dance, draw, or doodle, there's a platform out there for us where we can share our ideas far and wide. And the best part is, we don't have to ask anyone for permission. Today, I'm pleased to have as our guest Maureen Zappala. Maureen is a high achiever with many accomplishments, a coach, an author, a keynote speaker. She managed NASA's full-scale altitude simulation jet engine research test facility, the propulsion systems laboratory. In other words, Maureen's a rocket scientist. Maureen was twice a finalist in the Toastmasters World Championship of Public Speaking, which involves about 30,000 people around the world. And with all these talents and accomplishments, Maureen has had bouts with imposter syndrome, which she'll talk about during the interview. Maureen's a diehard college football fan, so am I. She has loyalty to her alma mater, Notre Dame, and her home state team, Ohio State University, who won last night.
I know.
Yeah, good stuff. And she's currently living in Las Vegas and working as a design associate with Lazy Boy. Maureen, welcome to the golden age of self-expression.
Thanks, Steve. Gosh, what a treat to hear all those. You read it just like I wrote it.
Oh, perfect. I appreciate that, and we want to get it right. So like I said, you're a person with many talents and accomplishments. So this is going to be a fun interview. But as we get started, the first thing I want to ask, it's been a crazy year and a half. How are you doing? And what are you doing to stay happy and healthy as we navigate through everything that's going on?
Yeah, I tell you, a year and a half of chaos, confusion. I don't know what to do. What I used to do isn't working for me anymore. And I'm sure many people have said the same thing. I am a professional speaker, and that's what I was doing when COVID hit. COVID wiped out my calendar, as it did most everybody. And I know a lot of people went to virtual, and I embraced it. I just didn't love it. So I started thinking, well, what else could I do? I have always wanted to be a decorator, which is so different from anything else I've done. I have no training, I have no degree, I have no business being in the business of decorating, but I decided to pivot, favorite word of many people over the last year and a half, and applied for a position at Lazy Boy, and they took me on. So for the last year, a week ago, I started at Lazy Boy. So now I am doing speaking. I'm still doing quite a bit of speaking, both virtually, and the live stuff is coming back. But man, I'm loving this design, decorating, helping people make their house into a beautiful home. So that speaks to my soul. So that answers the question of what keeps me happy.
All right. Terrific. So speaking, writing books, designing, those are a lot of different ways to express yourself. What does self-expression mean to you?
I believe we are all creative at our core. Even when people say, oh, I'm just not that creative, you really are. And just like what you said, with different ways to express it. I loved how you gave so many different examples: doodling, writing ideas, performing, singing. You'll never hear me sing. You'll never see me draw. But can I put colors together? Oh yeah. Can I put words together on paper? Yes. Can I get on a stage and help change people's perspective? Oh yeah. I mean, that's another one of my loves. I just love communicating ideas to help people think and change and inspire them. So yeah, many different ways that jazz me up as a creative person, because every one of us is creative.
We all have our niche somewhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Do you have any teachers, heroes, or role models that got you started along the way?
I have many. I'm sure, like we all do. We can pinpoint specific people, conversations, moments, events that change that trajectory of our life. And we all have many of them. And some of them are big, monumental ones, and some of them are just small. I remember I certainly don't have time to go through all of them. Actually, I was thinking about this morning when I was brushing my teeth. Like, that's a good question, because you gave me the questions, some of these questions ahead of time.
Mhm.
And I thought, I don't want to diss anybody, because everybody who crosses your path is there for a reason. I believe it's anointed, it's appointed, it's eternal. It's there's significance. Nothing is random and nothing is lost on that connection. So I can probably say every single person, whether I like them or not, whether they've been good to me or not, whether they've supported me or deflated me in some way, has been a little bit of a pivot, has been a little bit of a trajectory change. But yeah, there's definitely some ones that stand out. I remember when I was in the finals of the World Championship in 2009. It's the Toastmasters World Championship. It was the first time I'd ever been to a convention, and it was the first time I was in the finals. And I didn't win, but who cares? I mean, I was in the top 10 out of 30,000 people.
Right.
Way cool, right? And I came off the stage, and one of my coaches, or one of my dear friends, Mark Brown, who later became my coach, he came up and he gave me a big bear hug, like he always does. And he whispered into my ear, I don't even remember the exact words, but it was, you have a message that the world needs to hear, and you need to take this message to a bigger audience. And that was kind of like, oh, yeah, this isn't just about a 7-minute contest speech. This is about taking a message to a bigger audience, a bigger platform, making a bigger impact. So that was a turning point for me to become more involved in the professional speaking world. As far as writing, I remember wanting to write a book when I was about, 19. By the time I was 19, I had already lived a lot of life, painful, hurtful, difficult times, as well as some great moments. And I thought, well, I want people to hear my story. Well, we all have a story. Telling the story isn't the point, but telling the lesson from the story. And I think it took me a long time to learn lessons from the story of a painful childhood, teen years, to bring it to a story, to bring it to a book, to bring it to a message that people would benefit from.
Did writing about your personal experiences give you some relief if there was any trauma or?
Yeah, I've written 4 books. 3 of them I wrote myself, and 1 of them I co-wrote. So I was involved with 4 different publications. They're all different topics. And my first book was released, I think it was 2013. So it's coming up on, oh my gosh, it's like 9 years already.
Time flies.
Seriously. But prior to that, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I journaled. And that's what got me through my heartaches. And everybody's had heartache. Everybody's been beaten up by life. That was my method to get through it. And then I stopped for many years. And then about 10, 11, maybe 12 years ago, I started it again. I journal almost every day. I mean, I have stacks and stacks and stacks of notebooks. And I journal my thoughts, my prayers, my difficulties, my celebrations, my desires, my wants. Now, a lot of what I journal, I would not put in a book, just because either it's random, boring, or intensely personal. But those are the stories that I go back to, and I relive the emotion. People can't relate to my story, but they can relate to my emotion. And that's what I try to pull into my writing, my excitement, my fears, my courage, my inspiration, my relationships, my even mundane things. How do I get through a pandemic? When I moved to a new town, I've been in Vegas now for 2 years. Pandemic hit about 5 months into my move. I didn't know anybody. I knew a few people, but then I was like, I definitely can't meet anybody. Now I'm lonely. How do I get through that? So those are the types of things that I wrote about in my journal.
Right. It's a great learning experience. Now, one of the things you talk about a lot, like I said in the introduction, was imposter syndrome. And can you describe how it affected you?
I didn't know how it affected me because I didn't even know what it was.
Oh, okay.
Prior to knowing what it was, and I'll explain how I felt, and then for those of you in your audience that may not know what it is, they may recognize it without me even describing what it is or explaining what it is. But I'll describe my symptoms. When I was at NASA, I was qualified because I had a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Notre Dame, reputable school. And I loved the position. I loved the work, but every day I would walk into work and I would look around and I would think, oh my gosh, I'm in over my head. I mean, this is NASA. This is where all the smart people hang out. What am I doing here? Even though I had a good transcript from Notre Dame, I had good people skills. I was creative and curious. I was a good team player. I was good with people. Those were the skills and character qualities that they needed. Yet I still questioned my own competence. And when I hit a success mark, when I led a project well, when I delivered something to the customer that they were delighted in, I still would say, well, yeah, but it wasn't me, it was my team, or it was, the stars aligned, or, Congress funded us at the last minute. I would externalize the success instead of saying, no, I led this team. I did that work. So imposter syndrome is an irrational fear of being found out as a fraud, even though you have all the competencies, credentials, degrees, certifications, celebrations, awards, recognitions. You have all of the street cred that underscore your ability, yet you choose not to believe it. So you feel like a fake. So that's what imposter syndrome is. And I lived with it every day. Now, I didn't know what it was until years later when I happened to read a book about it. And it was literally, I felt like angels were singing, Maureen, this is what you are on earth to share. You need to take this message, this content, this idea of imposter syndrome and your experience of being at NASA and feeling in over your head and take that to a world who needs to get over it. So that's what I've done. I've created a set of strategies to help people get over it.
Right. On your website, it says that 70% of us have it. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's what the research has borne out. Probably more than that. 70% of the population experiences it. There are pockets of population that seem to experience it more intensely. And there's a definite gender divide. Men and women experience it. We process it differently, and it affects us differently. But make no mistake, you ask anybody, do you ever feel like you're in over your head? Do you feel like you don't deserve your success? Do you feel like you're about ready to be found out as somebody who doesn't belong in your position? And yeah, I would say 7, maybe 8 out of 10 would say, oh yeah, that's me.
So the takeaway, and we talked about this a little bit before the interview, is I have it, but there's a good chance a person sitting at the desk next to me has it too. So they're going through the exact same thing I'm going through. So it's interesting. And
yeah, what's interesting about it is there's definitely an internal conversation that says, wow, I don't belong here. But the bigger, probably more insidious element of it is when you look around and you compare yourself with others. And you automatically think, oh, they're better, they're smarter, better, richer, prettier, handsomer, more than I am. And there's this immediate diminishing of yourself. So, not just the internal conversation of what were they thinking, but there's oh, now it's external. There's something to compare it to. But you don't realize that they are doing exactly the same thing. They're looking at you thinking, wow, he's smarter, richer, more prepared, more competent. So it's pervasive.
Right. Now, what you have as a resource is a fraud-free framework.
Fraud-free framework, yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I wrote a book years ago, probably about 4 years ago, I'm losing track of time because time goes fast, right?
Right.
Pushing Your Envelope. It's a book about imposter syndrome. And I give keynotes, and I've done, half-day workshops on it. But what I found is that overcoming imposter syndrome is not just read a book and get over it, or go to listen to a keynote and get over it, or even do a deep dive in a half-day workshop. It's something that requires ongoing discipline, focus, intentional work. Because the thing about imposter syndrome, it is a thought process distortion. And we can control our thoughts. And when you control your thoughts, you do change your outcome. I mean, science has proven that. And what the fraud-free framework is a series of seven videos that it's an autoresponder. It's like you purchase it, and every week you get a link to a video and a workbook, and it helps step you through in deep detail. I think I just made up a new word. Deep detail. The strategies that I've developed for overcoming imposter syndrome. I have 5 strategies. So this fraud-free framework takes you through each of those 5 strategies. And it's transformational. I mean, people have called it a game changer. And I'm not saying that because I'm boasting. It's just, hey, this is what people have told me. So pretty excited.
It resonated with them. That's good.
Yeah, it really did. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you also talk about the confidence cutback that people experience. I think you mentioned that in when you give details on one of your keynotes. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, people think that imposter syndrome is a lack of confidence, but it's not. Imposter syndrome hits people that are usually successful, smart, and skilled. So it took confidence to get them to that position, right? I mean, they are the ones that had the confidence to go to the school, get the degree, apply for the job, show up for the interview, show up for the first day of work, take on the assignment. Those things take confidence. But you get to a part where you're like, I've never done that before. So it's not that I lack confidence. Now I've reached a limit of my confidence. And that usually is skill-based. Like, I don't have the skill to do that. And I can remember, and I bet with your listeners and people in a lot of professional environments, think back to a year and a half ago when live events went to virtual, and now meetings had to be conducted over Zoom, and how scary that was for a lot of people. They're like, ooh, scary, Zoom. I don't know how to do it. I don't want to be a production team. I don't want to figure out all of the bells and whistles, and even people getting onto Zoom. How do I do it? What do you mean? Just click on it and it shows up. And where's that mute button? I mean, we're all faced every day with a limit of skills, which we think is a limit of confidence, a lack of confidence, which we think is a limit of skills. But it's just something that, you just need to step over that line. Use the confidence in your character qualities to take you over to that next line. If you are resilient, curious, team player, all the things that I mentioned before, creative, optimistic, open to open to feedback, that's a better word. All of it, you have a great work ethic. Those are character qualities. So when you may see as a lack of confidence is a limit of confidence, which actually is probably a limit of skill. And to get the skill, you use your character qualities to get you over that hump. So you basically are increasing that limit of confidence to your next level.
Okay.
A lot of words to basically say it's not a lack of confidence, it's a limit of confidence.
Okay. So you're taking on a new role. Essentially, what you need is to be trained for that role, or take steps to learn that role, and then you'll be on the right track.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I took on this job as a design associate at Lazy Boy, like I said, I don't have a background in interior design. I just have a heart for it. I love it. I don't have a lot of experience in retail sales. I used to sell cosmetics door to door, but that was different than selling, a $2,000 sofa. I didn't have experience with a huge retail corporation. I worked for NASA, which is definitely a huge organization, but it wasn't retail. It wasn't bottom line oriented. So this was a completely different environment. And I could have said, oh no, I'm not qualified. But they saw something in me that said, she could do this. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust them. I know I can learn. I'm a good learner. I'm a good researcher. I am optimistic and I'm hardworking. Let's give it a shot. And, they took a chance on me. I took a chance on me and it's been great. So, I love that I even have that real life experience to show other people, hey, don't let a limit of confidence stop you. Jump in full head first, feet first. I mix my metaphors all the time. Just jump in, dive in, and you know what? Trust your ability to swim, because you'd be surprised what you can do.
All right, sounds good. Now, what would you do if somebody came to you that, for whatever reason, they lack confidence, or they've had bad experiences, or they don't know how they're going to be received, and they come to you afraid to express themselves? What advice would you give somebody like that?
Yeah, you know, one of the strategies in my fraud-free framework is essentially taking inventory of your own skills. And I use the story of when I was the manager of the propulsion systems lab, and I loved that job, and it was a fun job, but it was just time to move on to something else. And I was concerned about handing over the reins to the person who was going to take over after me, who had not even been named yet. So I didn't even have a picture in my mind of who this person was going to be. So I thought, how can I make the job transfer smooth? So I decided to write a job manual, because shockingly, there was none. So I wrote down a document of everything that I did as the manager of this system, of this propulsion systems lab. Everything I did on a daily, weekly, quarterly, yearly basis. 13 pages of who the people were, what the processes were, what the projects, what, the politics of it. Working with NASA, woo, loaded with politics. So, I gave all the little tips and tricks, and how to maneuver through the minutia. And took this document, 13 pages, and gifted it to the person who took over after me. And it was beautiful, because it made the transition so smooth. And then probably 10 years later, I happened to uncover this document again. I was moving and I found it in a box, and I looked at this and I flipped through it and I read it, and I thought, wow, I was pretty good. I mean, I took a tough job and I did it well. And I challenge people to do something similar. I challenge them to take inventory of what they do, whether it's in their personal life, their professional life, their hobbies. Just document as objectively as you can what you do, whether it's skill related or character related. And then, document it all, put it aside, go back and revisit it at some time later, and objectively be impressed with what you do. Because you bring something to the table that nobody else can. And you can't diminish your value just because you have this perception that somebody else is smarter or has been there longer, because that's not a good measure of your own greatness. We each have value, we each have distinction, and everybody brings something to the table. But when you can document your own value and own it, and don't dismiss it, don't diminish it, don't excuse it, because you need to own it, that's when you can start to overcome a lot of this imposter syndrome voice.
That's good advice. Is that another way that journaling helped you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
I don't think I have an undocumented thought.
Well, that's great. There's just so many ways, and a lot of times it could be humility, it could be a lot of different reasons, but we're afraid to pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah, I know why is that? Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Steve. It feels prideful. It feels like we're, dissing other people. It feels kind of yucky, but it is if that's your goal. If your goal is to elevate yourself over somebody else, then yeah, pat on your back, shame on you. But if it is instead to raise the level of everybody at the same line, and everybody brings something great to the table, because you are not less than anybody else. You're the same. We just bring different things. So patting yourself on the back, that's a healthy thing.
So a lot of times it's intention. If the intention is good, then it'll help everybody along with you. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure too, you've probably run across people that have what I call a false humility, where they'll say, "Oh, I really didn't do it that well," or "I'm really not as good as you think they are," or "I'm not as good as you think I am." But their intention is for somebody to say to them, "Oh no, that's not true. You really are good." That's different. That's different. That's false humility, and that's a little manipulative. People sometimes can read through that.
Right. So so the intentions are everything. Now, we talked at the beginning, there's been a lot going on with the pandemic and changing the way we do things. What's next for you as we get through the pandemic, and what's on your bucket list?
It's a big bucket list, and a lot of them are not earth-shattering things. I'm in the middle of a kitchen renovation project. My bucket list is to get it finished. What was I thinking when I started, excuse me, what was I thinking when I started a renovation project in the middle of a global pandemic? It took me 7 months to get my appliances. So when I get that done, that'll be a big win. I actually am in the middle of writing another book. It's a book about how Christians, because I am a Christian, how Christians can go through the process of divorce, which was personal, it was hard, and frustrating for me as a Christian. So that's a project I'm working on. I am starting to fill up my speaking calendar a lot. I would say every week I get more inquiries into speaking, which is sweet. And yeah, just kind of enjoying. I have 2 children. They're both off on their own now, almost. They're not living with me. One's in college and one is living on her own. And I'm just kind of enjoying this new stage of parenting from a distance, so to speak.
Right, right. No matter how old they are, my son's 34, we always worry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no matter what. And he's doing really well right now. He's getting a new job, but there's always in the back of the mind, there's worry. And
well, and that's interesting that you say that too, because you're not just worried for them. Imposter syndrome actually speaks to a lot of parents, because it's easy to look around and think, "Oh my gosh, I didn't parent as well as they did, so I'm fraud and fake." You know what? There's no script for parenting, so we need to shut down those voices and just say, "I'm just going to parent the very best way I know how." Trust the process and be on their side, be with them, encourage them, help them when it's appropriate. But do not compare yourself to other parents.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah, and we can't even judge our own value as a parent by how our kids turn out, because they are making their own choices.
That's right. That's right.
That's probably the hardest part.
Words of wisdom. So, well, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate you taking your time and giving us so many great details on imposter syndrome and your process of dealing with it.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate being invited.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, you have a lot going on. You've written 3 books. Well, you're on your 4th, but push the envelope.
I'm on my 5th.
Oh, you're on your 5th. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about the books and where they can get them, where the audience can get them.
Yeah, my first book I released in 2013, and it was called Girl, You Are Hot. And it was written for young women, and it is a confidence building book. It's not necessarily about imposter syndrome, but it has a lot of imposter syndrome, because I wrote that book before I even learned about imposter syndrome. My second book is a book about presentation skills. It's called Great Speakers Are Not Born, They're Built. My third book was a book about Ohio State University football, believe it or not. That's the one I co-wrote with a man named Jack Park, who is a legend in the Ohio State football world. He's a broadcaster, a radio personality. He's the resource for ESPN on all things related to not just Ohio State football, but Big Ten football and a lot of NCAA college football. And then my most recent book was the book about imposter syndrome, which is the Pushing Your Envelope book. And then my next book, I don't know when it's coming, because I am busy and I just need to find the focused time to finish writing it.
Okay.
And they're all available on Amazon. And yeah, Amazon.
Great. You're you can talk a lot about the Rose Bowl. I'm a California Golden Bear fan, and we can't talk about the Rose Bowl. We can talk about people like Aaron Rodgers that did well in the NFL, but we can't talk about the Rose Bowl. So that frustrates me a little bit. And then you do speaking and you have other projects. If somebody contacted you, what could they expect?
Well, I have a website, maureenz.com. So it's first name, last initial.com.
Okay.
And on that website, you'll find ways to contact me, the different programs that I offer for keynotes and workshops. I also do presentations, skill coaching. And then, of course, there's an inquiry form that you could fill out if you actually would like to hire me to either coach or to speak at your event. Also, there's links to all of my products. The fraud-free framework is on there. Links to my books. So best place to find me is maureenz.com.
Well, right off the bat, I'm interested in the fraud-free framework. I'm going to take a look at that.
Good.
So good. Well, like I said, we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate everyone that took the time to watch and listen. The information Maureen gave about what she does will be in the show notes, so you can find that. And we will be back again next week with another episode of The Golden Age of Self-Expression. Now, if you'd like to find out more about what we do, our website is productivediscourse.home.blog. You can get great information about our activities, how you can contact me if you'd like me to speak at your service club, community organization, religious group, or your Toastmasters club. Another episode will come next week, but in the meantime, please like, share, comment, subscribe, so this message will go far and wide, and we'll find that shining needle of common ground in that haystack